Hello everyone, Jace here, back with another Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel Solo Mode video. So Konami just released a new part of the World Legacy story, so let's check this out. Secret Powers of the Planet. Aurum and his linked comrades the Crusadia are up against a new foe, the Orcists, who can be called back from the graveyard even after they're destroyed. One question remains, who is the mastermind behind these menacing machines? A new World Legacy battle is about to be unleashed. So let's start it up. Scenario 1. Oh boy, how much is this? How much reading is there? Oh boy, is my first part just gonna be a bunch of reading? Okay, well let's just start this. Wait, Maximus for free? Really? Yo, that's actually, that would have been nice before I built Crusadia. Secret Powers of the Planet. Okay. A few years had passed since that nightmare of a tragedy. When Aurum awoke, he found that the girl and her brother were no longer with him. Was Ib really gone for good? The loss of the girl had its grip over Aurum's heart like an unbreakable vice. I couldn't protect Ib. If only I were stronger, then her death would have been avoided. The battle had left a chasm in Aurum's heart. Now that Ib was gone, Aurum had tasted for the first time just how terrifying a battle could be, and how devastating losing someone you treasured could be. He didn't have the heart to go on with his journey, not for now. However, there was still one thing on his mind that bothered him. It was Ningirsu. Even now, Aurum had no idea where he had gone. No doubt despair had taken him, now his beloved sister was no more, and when Aurum thought about how Ningirsu must be feeling right now, his heart became fraught with an immovable weight. But that was exactly why Aurum had to go after his childhood friend, and so the swordsman resumed his journey with Imduk. It was when panic was beginning to settle in Aurum's mind. Was it coincidence, or did the mekk-knight that dwelled within him lead him to it? He stumbled across the dormant typo right there, dormant crawler. It occurred to Aurum that this might lead to a clue. He could try and restore it and see if its communication system still worked. Oh, that was scenario 1. And for that we get more copies of Crusadia Maximus, which I already have 3 copies of, so okay. Oh, and we get some sleeves for this one. Let's go on. Aurum succeeded in restoring the crawler and gained access to its communication system, along with a number of records that detailed areas in which the swarms were active, and data on the locations where many crawlers had been destroyed. Perhaps there was still some life left in those areas, and if there was, maybe they would know where Ningirsu had gone. Armed with his new clue, Aurum set off to the areas he had gleaned from the records. However, as useful as the information was, it unfortunately didn't make Aurum's expedition any easier. There was nary a sign of life to be spotted anywhere, and the journey was looking like it could end in vain. Nature, uncaring and relentless, continued to batter the two mercilessly. But at last, a glimmer of hope at the end of the arduous tunnel. Aurum and Imduk had stumbled across the remaining tribes of the planet. That of the fiery recluses, the stalwart beasts, and the sacred lakeside trees. Although these encounters brought no clues as to Ningirsu's whereabouts, Aurum and Imduk were blessed with the legends and knowledge of the tribes. And by linking them together, Aurum was able to unlock a great secret power of the world and witness the tremendous power that slumbered in its depths. It made him think of the world chalice powers that were bestowed to him. But this was greater, far greater, hiding unbeknownst to the dwellers of the planet. Was this what Lee had sought? Aurum thought. Okay, let's read the description on the Crusadia Maximus sleeves. Protectors that illustrate a warrior who had matured and taken the scars etched in his heart during battles. Perfect for those who always want the best for their dear friends. Like, this is literally Xenoblade. What were the more secrets dwelled beneath this? Someone needs to proofread this. What the heck does this sentence mean? I think, were there more secrets? that dwelled beneath the surface will probably make more sense. One of them was the rebirth records, inscribed with the history of the planet, chronicles from generations long forgotten, and the others bygone memories of the planet's glorious age, where humans ruled from the apex. Long, long ago, there was a god who ruled the skies. With dragonkind as its disciples, it perpetuated the cycles of rebirth, destruction and rebirth to maintain the balance of the realms. However, the scale of the destruction grew bigger each time, and one day the balance of the two was thrown into great disarray. Once this delicate balance toppled, even the sacred skies could not hold back the destruction it wrought. The god decided that it could no longer oversee the skies by itself. With its power of creation, it brought forth layers and layers of the toughest earth and sealed the powers of destruction within. With nowhere to go, the powers raged and raged until it boiled and scorched the very earth, morphing it. The torrent of power rushed through the land and merged with the powers of creation, leaking out onto the surface. It became a small manifestation of the cycle of death and rebirth and gave life to the lands. With the last of its strengths, the gods then turned itself into a sky and entrusted it into the life blooming on the planet before vanishing. In the years following its disappearance, the power of destruction re-emerged on the surface many times. However, every time it did, the life on the planet would use the key, and with the help of the dragonkind, push it back to whence it came. Over time, the key became to be known as the word. The key came to be known as okay, yeah, no, I was not having a stroke. There are two as's there. As word. And the power of destruction as the Great Darkness. Thus, the great legend of the world hero was born. Starlit hero, your sword swathed in light, may you triumph over the Great Darkness. Oh, this is World Legacy Memories. That's some nice card artwork. Decades, century, maybe millennia passed since the beginning of the rebirth records. The land was now populated with life, known as humanity. There were a civilization who had gained scientific knowledge and technological know-how, and were at the height of their prosperity. Their glory came at a cost, for it not only tore the planet's gift away from it, but also their dragons who protected it. The god and the dragons The god and the dragons that once were had faded into obscurity as mere tales. Okay, I just can't read. And it was during this time that the key was excavated and uncovered. The humans were exhilarated by such a legendary and mystical find. Though its authenticity became gradually acknowledged, some expressed worries and doubts at the discovery. What did it mean for the key to have resurfaced in this time? Was this an omen, warning them of an inevitable battle between the world hero and the Great Darkness, like the legend said? Now that they could see the key existed in its sword form, did this not also mean that the powers of destruction were indeed sealed deep within the planet's crust? Humanity began to assemble their finest to analyze the key. Within the team that had been formed, there was a scientist who had shown her talent in all fields of medicine, astronomy, and archaeology. Her name was Lee. Lee was known all over the world as the foremost authority on computer science. The analysis was able to proceed smoothly thanks to her involvement, and not long after, the team branded itself as an organization called Crusadia, under the jurisdiction of the Confederation of Nations. Once they had analyzed the key further, they began to draft a plan that would help fight the imminent threats to their planet. It would involve warriors of a mechanical nature, and they called it Project Mekk-Knight. Work was to proceed without a moment's delay. Meanwhile, Lee drew up a hypothesis and sought to validate it in secret. She wanted to get to the root of the appearance of the Great Darkness that the world hero legend spoke of. Recorded in legend were multiple tales of the key being used to drive back the Great Darkness by harnessing the power of creation and destruction. It was a simple enough story. The Great Darkness would appear, and the world hero would fight it back with a key. However, could the reverse also not be true? That using the key was the very thing that drew the Great Darkness out? There were those who were entrusted with a divine mission, and the conspirators who sought to revive the powers of destruction. The world hero legend was ultimately a story of their power struggle over the key. Whoever has the key will control the fate of the world. Or so Lee's hypothesis. Or so went Lee's hypothesis anyway, and the more time she spent trying to validate it, the darker her ambitions grew. The divine powers will be mine. This is Mekk-Knight Morningstar, so I guess this is the first Mekk-Knight and then the destruction of the Earth. A few years have now passed since Project Mekk-Knight began, and finally, Mekk-Knight of the Morningstar was complete. It had been fitted with a core powered by the key and possessed enough power to fight the most deadly of wars. However, an incident occurred during its test run, with none other than Lee as its test pilot. With the key, she had reversed all of the celestial powers coursing through its mechanical body, and diverted them into the planet's core, faster than anyone could make a move. Lee had planned this all out, before taking her place as test pilot. The power that had flowed into the planet's core split the lands, and once again the destruction from within overflowed to the surface, scorching every bit of Earth that it had touched. The entire world was beginning to split apart in this unprecedented disaster, and the revival of the Great Darkness drew ever nearer. However, its resurrection was not without obstacles. The Crusadia had created, as assistive units, several Mekk-Knights in total. The remaining Mekk-Knights faced off against Mekk-Knight of the Morningstar and destroyed it, sealing away the Great Darkness back within the Earth once more. But the Great Darkness was, at the end of the day, a divine force, one that the mortals failed to seal away completely. Inspired by the key, the team decided to put their powers into physical vessels of their own, and left them on the surfaces as legacies. Now that the land was ruined, it was getting harder and harder to live in such conditions. It seemed that life on this planet would be gradually snuffed out, including humanity. The reason why the Master of the Key, the world hero, didn't appear in our time of need is because we humans drained the planet of its powers, thought the Crusadia. They began to mobilize to put an end to humanity's so-called glory, as it was the largest obstacle to the revival of the barren lands and the planet's chances at surviving. They left the 7 Mekk-Knights they had built in the ruined world after they were programmed with instructions to help rekindle the planet. The Mekk-Knights were also installed with data of the Crusadia members they had established a brain link with. If the lands could be healed once more, and the planet could take back the power it once had, then perhaps they could avoid imminent disaster. The Crusadia left all their hopes to a faraway future they may not even reach. However, there was one thing they failed to realize. The mastermind behind this incident was Lee, and she had already been taken by the burning lands. When she was found, she was already dead. But only in her flesh. Her soul had been released from its physical vessel, and she had transformed into World Legacy World Chalice, her will and knowledge. The tremendous power that dwelled within the planet was the very thing that Lee was after, thought Aurum. Suddenly he was struck by a sense of terror. He could feel a great force of malice that threatened the planet, but from where he could not tell. Perhaps someone somewhere was beckoning to the darkness, trying to bring it forth. He had to stop them before another terrible disaster happened. And in that moment, in Aurum's mind, a figure of Ningirsu appeared. The figure of his childhood friend, tormented with sadness from the loss of Ib, seeking darkness in his despair at the world. Although slight, he could feel Ningirsu's presence within the malice. It couldn't be. Aurum reined in his uneasy heart in. He would need help to stop this malice. He asked the elders of each tribe to lend him their strength, and they answered his pleas with a great number of warriors, and the tribes united in a formidable alliance. They named themselves after the warriors of old that their writing spoke of, and thus the second coming of the Crusadia was born. The Crusadia were taken to a hidden spot by the tribe of the Sacred Trees, and activated World Legacy, World Crown. Aurum and his companions had now obtained powers that could help them combat the malice that threatened their world. The Crusadia began their advance towards the great tower at the center of all this malice. The orchestrated babel, towering into the sky in its metallic magnificence, surrounding it were the Orchest, mechanical weapons, waiting on standby in silent formations. At the tower's base was Ningirsu, and activating World Legacy World 1 was the only thing on his mind. Now that Aurum could see his childhood friend, the swordsman could only think about how much sadder he looked. Aurum prayed that he was only overthinking the situation, but he knew that their reality was not a kind one. Ningirsu was here because he wanted the powers of darkness, and he was at the center of the malice Aurum had felt. That was the truth that awaited him at the end of his long search. But no matter how much time had passed, no matter how many things had changed, the one thing that remained the same was that Ningirsu was still his friend. Aurum thought about what he could do now that he was here. He had to stop Ningirsu from starting a disaster that could mean the end of their world. The only one who can stop this villainy is me, Aurum thought, gathering all his courage. He signaled for his companions to mobilize, and now a new battle was about to begin. Ningirsu's sorrow. When Ningirsu saw what had happened, a bolt of guilt pierced through his grief. Even in his desperation, he never imagined this would happen. His eyes could hardly believe what they were seeing. How did all this happen so fast? He prayed that he was dreaming and that he was going to wake soon. All he wanted was to see his dear sister again. As the scene of another nightmare unfurled around him, he became embroiled in a storm of emotions. I need to save Ib. Even as his mind was numbed with stupor, Ningirsu's body began to move without command. In what looked like an impulsive choice, he struck his childhood friend unconscious, taking both the other man's sword and Ib. What good was this world if Ib were not in it? He would do anything, be it good or evil, if it meant he could see her smile again. That single thought of getting his sister back was all Ningirsu needed to force his weary limbs forward. He had the mekk-knight cores from when the 60s nightmares were defeated, and now he also had the sword he took from Aurum. Using the facilities that were still present in the mekk-knight headquarters, he analyzed the artifacts with feverish desperation. This world possessed a mystical power similar to that of the world legacies, and if anything that had a clue regarding its specifics, it would be the mekk-knights. They might even have a way to bring Ib back. Although he was unable to glean a way to resurrect Ib, he learned of a great deal about a number of facilities from the ancient civilization. Ningirsu left the mekk-knight headquarters and set off to each one of them with the lifeless body of his sister in tow. Many of the facilities he visited had already ceased to work, and the ones that barely did provided little to no useful information. However, Ningirsu never gave up. There must be a way he could save Ib somehow. With that unwavering belief in his heart, he resumed his grueling journey, and finally, at long last, he discovered an ancient facility that was still in working condition. After countless weary roads walked, Ningirsu had gone through more information than any average man would in his life. He had thoroughly inspected the mekk-knight cores and several ancient facilities. With what he had gathered, including files on the key and technologies thought to be long lost, he had finally unlocked the secrets hidden within the planet. And the truths of the world that had been shrouded in mystery, Ningirsu trembled with joy. He could revive his sister now. With his newfound certainty, Ningirsu set about creating a vessel that could house Ib's soul using the ancient technologies. However, this task was to be the most difficult yet. Trial after trial resulted in countless failures and their byproducts, and as the days ticked by, he had amassed enough vessels to create his own army. But at last his efforts paid off. He finally created a mechanical doll that would work. By synthesizing the doll with the body of his dead sister, he also succeeded in reinitializing the functions of one of the twin swords vital to his plans. So much time had been poured into this endeavor, but at least there was something to show for it. A strange sense of elation began to bubble within Ningirsu. His sister had given her life for this planet. Now it's time for him to create a new world for her. Now that Ningirsu had the mechanical doll's powers, the second step of the plan to build orchestrated babble could finally begin. Ningirsu, the orchestrator, protectors that illustrate a young man that gave everything for his sister, perfect for those who will always pull through their hardships to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, so that was a huge info dump, so I think I'm just gonna end this episode here. So next time we'll actually unlock this gate and get through to the actual duels. But until then, see you guys later. Bye!